Before I begin, I better clarify something from a previous video. I had a reading from the Book of Revelation, and the plan is to talk about the mark of the beast being a chip or a system of government that you have to accept to buy or sell goods, to receive any help from the state, or basically to be allowed to live within a state. And that is something I will be looking at, I think, in another setting. It's something I want to deal with, but I need to really earn my stripes before I tackle it. I'm only beginning this journey here. And the first, I think, book, 2 books, 3 books, probably they mightn't be, they'll need a lot of work. There's something when I go back and look at them, I'll go, yeah, I could have done better. But who knows, what I will give will be my best. And that is what I am doing here with these videos. I want to build a setting. I mean, Tolkien was able to make Lord of the Rings great because he built the fictional world. And because he built that fictional world, he was able to put the story in a very real way within the setting. The other clip I was looking at was that brilliant line from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. We are pilgrims in an unholy land. And that was another idea, having Papal State infiltrators in the corporations or in the United Nations territories. So to begin, I will look in this video at I'll give a brief look at the Papal States. The Papal States in this setting were established in 2047, a successor state to the original Papal States, which lasted from 754 until 1870 with Italian unification. In this setting, the Vatican City, Malta, San Marino and Liechtenstein, in response to a lot of civil and social unrest in the aftermath of a war, formed the fledgling Papal States. From this, they began to spread out, and over the next 2 years, a large part of Western Europe, as well as Poland, Liechtenstein, Croatia, Slovenia, and much of South and Central America joined with the Papal States. The rest of the countries pretty much stayed with the United Nations and formed their own nation. The Papal States are ruled as a monarchy, with regional governments, some ruled by governors, some by kings, some by presidents. It is pretty much up to each individual state how they are run internally as a political entity, but they must submit to the overall Papal State, the overall laws that govern the states. They can add their own or subtract their own, as long as it doesn't come into conflict with the federal state law. The Pope is the spiritual head takes care of the spiritual side, the monarch, the political and law. And I forgot to mute my phone. The Papal State military is under the authority of the king or the monarch. And well, each state will have their own what's called guard, the Swiss Guard or the Hibernian Guard, the Iberian Guard, Palatine Guard, who send units to the capital to Notice I didn't say Rome. I think I'm going to change the... No, I'll backtrack on that. This is some of these videos I will, as I'm talking out the scenario, I may change as it goes, and that is part of the world building process. It looks grand on paper, but when I talk it out, it looks like, yeah, maybe not. It may play out that I had an idea for the Papal States that Rome has fallen in a previous conflict with the United Nations, and a puppet pope who calls himself Catholic, or herself Catholic, let's play around with that idea, and they sit in the Vatican. And it's a lesson that the church needed to learn, as this is part of the process in the world building, that they needed to learn that the church is not the edifice, it is the people. So the Papal States move their capital to maybe Andorra, or it'll be on planet, even though the Papal States do have territories off-world, and that could be fun to explore. The economy is a distributed economy where there is allowance for capitalism. There is some socialism where there is a basic standard of living that the people agree on, and taxes are taxed accordingly. But much of the economy is based off the distributist model, that the CEO of or manager of a company can only earn a percentage or a certain agreed multiple of what the lowest earner does. It could be twice, it could be 10 times, it could be 100 times. That is agreed within the company by the workers. And it is important that the workers, to earn greater money for themselves, that they run the company efficiently. So it pretty much works out as what a standard corporation would be. They pay their CEO well to lead well. Now I want to play around with the idea that it's not totally that, because I've seen what happens when or I've heard what would happen if the workers got total control. It would be anarchy, and they'd run the company into the ground pretty quickly. But in a mixed economy, a mixed, how do I put it, structured economy, that there is capitalism, there is socialism, there is distributism. There is a mix to get the best from each, so that the greater whole will work more cohesively, work better for the benefit of the people. Like Chesterton talked about, that there is no difference between working for in a communist system or a capitalist system. In both cases, you're basically a slave, one to the state, one to your wage, and you have no true freedom. And I think I'm going to be pretty black and white in the setting I'm beginning with here. If I try and overcomplicate things, I'm only learning to write, I'm only learning to build worlds, establish settings, so I'm thinking of keeping it simplistic enough, keeping it black and white. The Papal States are the good guys, and I'm putting the best case scenario forward for how the economy works, and miracle of miracles, it just seems to work. But I do want to have the physics pretty good, or at least consistent within the setting. If I say that the travel within the solar system requires a whatever engine, the plot-powered engine, that plot-powered engine will work the same for all sides and will try to be consistent in speeds and in description. That's one of my issues I have with Star Trek. It is completely inconsistent. The most important thing is to maintain consistency within this setting. So, more on the Papal States. It covers about 1/5 of the world's surface, possibly. I'll have to do the math. I'll have to have a look at the globe, pick the countries that are contained within, and do the math. What percentage it will be. What I'll probably do is I will keep it pretty much to the current nation states, just to make it more simplistic. I may break up some states, but they're where I have definitive areas for either states within, like in a nation state, like the United States. If I decide that in the future setting several of the United States have broken away and become members of the Papal States, they'll maintain their current borders. That's something I want to work on over the next couple of months and see what happens. I want to use this to put the best case scenario forward. So the monarchy will operate pretty much on the same way the papacy will work. The Pope is voted on by the College of Cardinals. The President will be voted on by the College of Nations. The idea of subsidiarity is the giving as much autonomy to local government as possible. But in this scenario, we'll say the local government might be the state government. What currently operates as Ireland will have its own government. It will have a government at provincial and possibly county level. The government of Ireland will have a seat on the Papal Council. And just like every other state, and have an equal say. And this body will vote on the monarch. The reason for this is that, and it's just for best case scenario, the best people for the job will do the right thing. It's not, in many ways it's not realistic, and there will be just as much politics and corruption if that was the case, but that's something I want to explore in a later setting. I've called this universe A001, A001. The Papal States will operate on the best case scenario. The United Nations, I'm going to ramp up the negative and show the negative sides of what can happen. Same with the corporations. I'm going to have several corporations operating good and ethically under the auspices of the Papal States, and some independent corporations will follow suit, and likewise the unethical advance of the other side. Now, I want to see where that gets us. So, yeah, I kind of rambled off a bit topic, so let's get back on topic. The Papal States are less scientifically advanced than the United Nations in bioengineering and in what we say it, in some of the more exotic forms of physics, because the Papal States are not going to muck around with some exotic elements that are discovered. Or sorry, they don't muck around with the merging of man and machine, which the United Nations have. And because they've mucked around with their with creating cybernetic systems, it means greater efficiency. And again, I will be using best case scenario that they can, like the Matrix, download information directly into their brains so that they can learn things much more quickly and disseminate results much more quickly. The Papal Saints don't do this, but they do use an internet, so that it still works. It works in this very similar way, but it's one step removed. You interface with it. You're not part of the system. And I want to show that that leads to disaster. And that it may become like a War of the Worlds scenario, that the United Nations overstretch and they are brought down by their own arrogance. Don't know. You know what? You'll have to read the book once it's done, but we're building the world here. Now, they're in this setting. This is after a Third World War, which kind of brought the countries together, much in the way the World War II created the first United Nations. This United Nations will be more of a state to prevent further war from happening, but their social policies led to the creation of the Papal States, or led to the expansion of the Papal States, which already existed before the war broke out. The states will operate much in the way that India and Pakistan have since their foundation. That there have been a few hot wars, but it's mainly Cold War, with border skirmishes. And the wars that did happen were limited in area and limited in scope. It didn't go nuclear, which both sides have weaponry. It didn't go to biological warfare or chemical warfare, apart from a couple of instances where United Nations mucked with the Papal States, but it led to the tentative peace that the world exists, rather than face a massive retaliation. The war stopped. So I'm going to end it here for the moment, and I will take up a bit of the history building in the next. So keep an ear out for that. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you don't, give it a thumbs down. Do one thing or the other, would really appreciate it. Whichever you decide, please leave a comment below. Let me know what you think. And let me know, if you want to, where would your country be? Would you be a member of the Papal States? Have you suggestions? And if you haven't already, I'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe. The more subscribers I get, the more I can start working on these videos, the more I can build this channel and really make it a great place to debate, to interact, to have the conversations in this fictional setting we can't have in the real world. Because you can't hurt a fictional object. Let's be honest. So, thank you for listening. Hope to see you all again soon, and God bless.